show. As for your question off the top with Arizona, so this is going to be a trivia time for the listeners at home, because I know GP already knows this because it was in my column. If you haven't read my column, you won't know the answer. So play along at home. Trivia time for the listeners is this, and I will tell you the answer at the end of the segment. Tommy Lloyd right now has a team that is number 2 in multiple metrics, both predictive and results-based. Arizona has a great shot as we speak right now at getting a number 1 seed. They rolled Washington over the weekend, won 92-68, and with a 22-2 record right now, Arizona's in a really good spot. And I think what Tommy Lloyd's doing here is up for legitimate consideration for National Coach of the Year. Obviously, he'd be on the short list. But if he can get Arizona to the 1 line on Selection Sunday, which we are now less than a month away from, by the way. We are less than a month away from Selection Sunday. He would become just the 3rd coach in history to get a number 1 seed in his first season as a head coach, period. Not first season with a program. No, first season ever as a head coach. Only 2 other people have done it. You can play along internally. I'll let you know who the other 2 people were in just a little bit here. So Arizona at this point, I know you don't have them 2nd overall, but my column basically said Arizona has a very convincing case to be a top 2 team in the sport right now because of what they've been able to do. If you look at the metrics right now, they are 4th in Torvik, but they are 2nd in KenPom. They were 2nd in the net as of yesterday. They obviously still are. So 2nd in the net, 2nd in strength of record, 2nd in KenPom, 2nd in Sagarin, 2nd in BPI. They are 4th in KPI, and they are 4th at Torvik. So Arizona has a viable case. The only 2 losses on the road, Tennessee, UCLA. Not only are those ranked, they were ranked teams when they played them, ranked teams now, viable, comfortable, high-seeded NCAA tournament teams. What Tommy Lloyd's been able to do has been outstanding. I don't want to say it's been overlooked, Parrish, because it has not been overlooked. I mean, damn, I just wrote a damn column about it over the weekend. But at this point, I would have Tommy Lloyd National Coach of the Year. I say this as someone who's going to go see another prime candidate for that on Tuesday night with Ed Cooley. I see what Bruce Pearl has done. But because Tommy Lloyd just became a head coach, just took over this program, has his team sitting on the 1 line, and per more metrics than not, the 2nd best team in the sport to Gonzaga, I would have him, again, this is ever so narrowly ahead of Bruce Pearl and then ahead of Ed Cooley. But what he's done there has been well beyond expectation. Last point here, because I think it can sometimes be easy just to think like, oh yeah, well, they were going to have a good team, they had a good roster. This team wasn't that great last season when they had Sean Miller and they had the postseason ban, and they were not a ranked group heading into the season. They were expected to be good, top 3, top 4 in the Pac-12, but not top 5 in the country good. What Tommy Lloyd's been able to do with this roster, with this talent, to get Arizona back in the mix of national relevance, top 5 status is pretty awesome.
They did finish 29th at KenPom last season under Sean Miller. I think we've talked about this before. They were a good team last season. We just never discussed them really or focused on them much because they weren't going to play in the NCAA tournament. And so I don't want to say they were off people's radar, but we don't spend a lot of time talking about teams that aren't going to the NCAA tournament. But they did finish 29th, and then they returned Azuolas Tubelis, Ben Mathurin, Kirk Risa, Christian Coloco. They returned 5 of their top 9 scorers. They added a transfer from Gonzaga and obviously added a new coaching staff. And they have been terrific. Like, it's wild to think that this team could also have James Akinjo, who, of course, after last season transferred to Baylor and has been one of Baylor's key players this season. You're right that they have a case to be top 2 in the country. I have them 4th right now behind Gonzaga, Auburn, Kentucky, and Arizona. And if somebody were asking me to justify that, I think Auburn you can still argue has the best resume in the country. I mean, they're 7-2 in quadrant 1, 6-0 in quadrant 2, 13-2 inside the first 2 quadrants. That is better. Really, it's better than everybody in the country based on pure resume. You could argue reasonably that Auburn still has the best resume in the country, even after last week's overtime loss at Arkansas. Auburn remains the only team in the country that hasn't lost in regulation. But Gonzaga's computer numbers at this point are so strong that I did elevate, after Auburn lost, Gonzaga to the number 1 spot in the top 25 and 1. So I've got it 1 Gonzaga, 2 Auburn, and then 3 Kentucky, 4 Arizona. And there's no getting around the fact that Arizona probably does have a better raw resume than Kentucky. I mean, Arizona's 6-2 in the first quadrant, 5-0 in quadrant 2, so 11-2 in the first 2 quadrants, whereas Kentucky's 5-4 in quadrant 1, 4-0 in quadrant 2, so 9-4 in the first 2 quadrants. If I were trying to justify them, why Kentucky over Arizona at this point, I think they've got better wins, like an 18-point win at Kansas. Kentucky has that. An 11-point win at Alabama. Kentucky has that. Kentucky's also 14-2 in the past 16 games, and the 2 losses are at LSU and at Auburn, and they lost a starter in both of those games. They lost Xavier Wheeler against LSU. They lost Ty Washington against Auburn. So Kentucky's only lost twice this season when Xavier Wheeler and Ty Washington both start and finish the game. And again, that 18-point win at Kansas is massive. But this isn't something I would have a more than a 30-second argument about with anybody. If you want to have Arizona anywhere from 2 to 4, I think it's totally reasonable, which underlines, I think, your larger point. At this moment, they're headed for a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. And I keep hearing people say, oh, Gonzaga, Arizona, that's going to be some West Regional final. If they both keep this up, they're not both going to be in the West Regional. They're both going to be 1 seed somewhere else.
I thought about that very thing. Yes, Arizona is clearly tracking toward basically getting into a battle with Gonzaga about who would be the number 1 seed in the West. And if Arizona can win out's asking a lot. I don't think it's going to win out. Road games remaining at Utah, at Colorado, at USC. Home games remaining against the Oregon schools, and then Stanford and Cal. Then we get to the Pac-12 tournament. Arizona is almost certainly going to take at least 1 more loss. 2 might even be reasonable at this point, and I don't think it'll be more than that. But if it gets to Selection Sunday with just 3-loss Arizona team versus a Gonzaga team that wins out with 2 losses would actually be fascinating from a resume perspective, because Gonzaga did not play a road game in non-conference play. It's going to actually, because of the way the schedule broke against Gonzaga in league play, like Gonzaga, I think a lot of people realize this. Gonzaga is only going to play 14 WCC regular season games. Normally it will play 16. It's the 2 it's going to lose are both winnable, but they're on the road. I can't remember which ones they are. They might be Pacific. Anyway, they're both road games. So the point is they're going to lose 2 more road games. So when the committee is looking at, okay, we got to split hairs here between what teams are getting on the one line and what teams aren't and where we're going to ship them. Gonzaga's not going to have as many road opportunities, road wins, non-conference road games. That could ultimately wind up, giving Arizona Arizona's got to get there with 2 or 3 losses, probably to beat out a Gonzaga team that doesn't lose. But if that were to happen, then, you want the West region if you're Arizona and Gonzaga. So that would be interesting. They could also end up 1-2 in the same region. That's not unthinkable. Obviously, that would be quite the storyline that none of those men want. Mark Few and Tommy Lloyd don't want to face each other in the NCAA tournament, particularly in the first year where they're not on the same coaching staff together. But we'll see. Again, we have a month to get there. We will get a little bit of a peek into this upcoming weekend, and we'll talk about this on Friday's show. The once a year, it's not even midseason. We're now less than a month away to Selection Sunday. Top 16 reveal on CBS will be Saturday at 12:30. The selection committee is meeting this week, and it will, figure out a top 16. I'm going to talk to the chair, Tom Burnett, of this year's committee, and there will be something on the site later this week in advance of that. But the point is, we'll see where they decide to ship both of these teams, because Gonzaga plays Wednesday at Pepperdine. Figure that's going to be a win. They'll probably be the one in the West. Arizona does not play again until after the committee is done meeting. They play home against Oregon State. If they were to lose that, I guess they might make a late second change. But I think they decide that, GP, on Thursday nights. As for Tommy Lloyd, real quick, just on the whole, what he has been able to do and accomplish here from a historical standpoint, he is going to have a really good chance. 22 wins right now. Here are the only coaches to win 30 games in their first year as a head coach. Bill Guthridge at North Carolina, Bill Hodges at Indiana State, Brad Underwood at Stephen F. Austin, Steve Prohm at Murray State, Jamie Dixon went 31-5 in 2004, his first year as a head coach at Pitt. First year as a head coach, period. Brad Stevens did it his first year as a head coach at Butler, won 30 games. And then Stan Heath won 30. He got there because he made the Elite Eight in 2002. John Warren in Oregon. Of course, you remember John Warren. 1945, played a 43-game season, went 30-13. Those are the only head coaches to win 30 in their first year. Tommy Lloyd, I think, is going to do this. Now,